So good to see all of you in this new year. I've missed you. I hope that you embraced holidays with curiosity and compassion, and we're starting a new year together. Today, we are going to talk about this idea of embracing mystery and why our brains want to have answers and figure it all out, and how, when we know we are never going to have all those answers, how do we help our brains settle down and embrace more mystery? So that's kind of our theme today. But I want to start with just contexting kind of, these are the big buckets as I thought about what do we really struggle with in like that tension in our brains of I want to know cause and effect. I want to know why this happened. I want to know when something is going to align for me. So we have the mystery of God. We also have the mystery of when. Like that's, I think, Brooke, your phone might be ringing.
Anybody want to talk to Isaac?
Sure. Yes. Yes. So we may get it. It may still pick it up. Yes, we'll all get to talk to Isaac, who's a senior in high school. So we can only imagine what Isaac's calling about. I have one of those too. In the middle of the day. Excuse me from school, probably. The mystery of when, that is like timing. So when is this going to happen? Or why did this person die so soon? Or I'm waiting on God's timing. There's also the mystery of when is like when time stops. Like it feels like you can bend time almost, like that magical moment of looking a baby in the eyes, and or when you lose yourself in something you love doing and time just flew by, right? That's a mystery because time was clicking. Why does it feel so different? That's Chronos and Kairos you might read about in scripture. Kairos time is that divine time, where Chronos time is like man-made time, how we mark our days, how we mark our hours. There's also psychological time, which is me struggling with things or bringing up the past or bringing up the future. That time isn't really real. It's gone. And yet I keep replaying it, or I keep worrying about the future when it's not even a real thing yet. So the mystery of when is really robust in our brains. The mystery of who, this is kind of like, so if you're single, will I ever find a partner? Who am I is a true mystery, right? And it changes, it evolves as we age. Who are you? Why do you behave that way? We look at groups of people like, how could they think this? How could they do that to other people, right? That's a mystery. We don't know. We can spend so much of our lives trying to figure out why people behave the way they do. We'll never know for sure. So that's a mystery that we kind of have to surrender into. When you think about who am I, we are evolving people. Our experiences change us. Our age changes us. Who we encounter changes us. Right? We'll never land on a finite answer of who I am. Child of God is probably the most foundational thing we can come up with. And otherwise, it's all fluid. It's all a mystery. It's all unfolding before our eyes. And then the mystery of why. This is probably the toughest one, I think, that we just struggle with why so much. So we're going to talk through that a little bit today, of why do bad things happen to good people? Why do good things happen to bad people? Right? Those very lines are in the Psalms, by the way. Those very lines are in the Psalms, which were written 3,000 years ago. So nothing has changed in human experience. We are still asking those same questions. Why, like some of the coincidences that are horrible, why did those two cars hit at that intersection at that very second, when 5 seconds difference would have made everybody's life, fine and go on about their day? Or why did that coincidental running into somebody lead to something divine and amazing, right? So we have the whys we kind of tend to think of why as the bad stuff that happens. We also have this like, why did, somebody who struggled with infertility magically get pregnant, right? Like how, that's a mystery. That was part of my story. We had exhausted science and then got surprise babies, but I tell that story to somebody that's going through infertility, they don't want to hear it. I didn't want to hear those stories either. And it's a mystery. I will never know where those 2 little eggs were hiding when science was trying to get them to appear. And I'll never figure that out, right? We will never be able to figure that out. So embracing mystery is what I want us all to think about today is, why do I keep struggling to find answers to questions I will never find answers to, right? And could I surrender more into the mystery of it all and quiet my brain from trying to solve the puzzle all the time? Because it holds back our lives, our joy, our sanity, when we continue to search for why. What's coming up in your minds as we start this conversation today?
Ginger.
Yes.
Well, each year I pick a word.
Yes.
And mine this year is acceptance.
Oh, that's a good one, Judy. So what does that meaning to you? How is that word? What does it mean to you? Or what do you want to be intentional about with acceptance?
Chases.
Yeah. Yeah. Losing your son so young. Yeah, exactly.
Where you don't fight about it in your mind.
Yes.
Of saying, God, why me? Why I don't.
That's right, Joe. That's right.
Anymore.
That's right.
Because
It happened, right? And as Joe said, fighting with it in your mind. That's such a good phrase, and that's what we do. We just keep fighting with it in our mind. And you realize the self-torture of that.
it doesn't change it.
Exactly. Right. Right. And we will never find an answer. We will never make sense of that.
So I have a slash resilience.
Okay. Acceptance / resilience. Yep. Exactly. That's right. And actually, you're reminding me of some studies in resilience, some psychological studies that are about kind of this releasing the need to know actually helps build resilience. We don't build resilience if we stay in the weeds of the fight in our brain. Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful. What else is coming to your minds? Yes.
We've lost the ability to sit in a mystery.
Yes.
Because we can Google it quickly.
Exactly.
And so our kids in particular and younger people, but also now us, we have we can have instantaneous answers. So I think we've lost the ability to ponder.
Totally, Michelle.
And so I think that we've lost creativity and all the things that come with pondering and mystery, because we don't have to sit with questions, and we don't have to. We can solve it.
We can look it
get
up.
an answer. And so sometimes I think I tell my kids, like, instead of like immediately Googling, let's sit
Yes.
in mystery for a minute.
Perfect.
And what do you think the answer might be?
Yes.
What do you think it could be? Like, because kids don't. We're losing a critical skill.
Yeah, we are. We are.
And imagination.
Yep.
And all the things that come with mystery, imagination and
Yes.
wonder and awe.
That's beautifully said. Beautifully said. And because we can get so many answers on Google, their young brains are learning that there are answers. But look at the things that are going to come at them in life that there are not answers for. We can't Google why somebody who is thriving dies in his early 50s, right? We can't Google that. So then they're going to hit a wall of not being able to answer things, but you're training them to sit in the mystery of it all, so that when life throws something at you, you might be able to sit in that space a little bit better than I have to have an answer. Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful stuff.
I also have a word, Judy, for this year, steady.
Oh,
And it relates back to the when.
Yeah.
to just try and not be lurching
Yes.
from one thing to the next, feeling a sense of anxiety and, I have to get this done now, and what's the next thing on the list, but more just remaining steady through the process.
I love that.
Allowing the unfolding, as you said.
Yes. Yes.
That's really hard.
It's so hard. And yet we know, like, Jesus used the word steadfast, which is steady. Like that foundational inner strength to stay steady in the storms. There's so many parables about that. And yeah, that's beautiful, Kim. Beautiful. Yeah. What else is on your minds? The mystery. Or what is hard for you to embrace in mystery? Like what does your brain tell you today you need to know? You need to figure out? What comes up for you?
The one that's just persistent and I thought had gone away for the past several years. For me, I'm just going to say it is the presidential situation and possibilities.
Sure.
And again, I do try to read books about who are the people who are on lots of sides, but particularly one, who and why? Why is this happening? How did we get to where we are? I mean, in the broader sense, oh my goodness, we're so fractured and we're so angry and hostile toward each other, and we don't think, we don't consider, we don't listen to each other. And so who does that make us, and why, and how are we ever going to get through that? I mean, it comes at me every time I turn on the radio, the television, Facebook. It's everywhere. So I've tried to. I'm pretty good these days at. It's a mystery, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
It needs to be a mystery. That's not for me to know or solve or understand fully, and that's okay.
And why?
What do I do? It's very stressful.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a rough year of that.
Yeah.
Um,
It's amping up. I feel
yes,
like.
it's
Slow it
amping
back
up.
down a little.
Yeah.
But here we go. It's a big election coming up. But
Yeah. Yeah.
there.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that that is a big mystery. And what is happening cosmically, I go back to find hope. I go back to the metaphor of the space shuttle reverberates the most right before it breaks through the sound barrier. So I keep holding on to the hope that this is the reverberation before a breakthrough. Yes, but the reverberation's lasting a long time. So we're still shaken. But I have to hold on to the hope that if you look at conflict through the ages of humanity, it gets ugly before it gets peaceful. And that's just a pattern we have to kind of trust. And we're in the ugly in our lifetime. But I'm hoping we see the peaceful. Yeah. And so we just have to hang on to, I don't know why this is happening. I don't know why things continue to feel hateful instead of loving. But I have to hang on that good will come. This will be redeemed. Right? Yeah.
A great distraction during the reverberation is just, as Tom used to say, do the good that is ours to do.
Exactly.
In the meantime.
Exactly. Do the good that is ours to do in the meantime. Perfect. Yeah, Marilyn.
Oh, and then back on the cosmically.
Yes.
I heard on the news the other day that they found 19 new galaxies, and that kind of.
Wow.
Oh my gosh.
That's cool. That's so cool, Marilyn. That's hope, right? There are things out there beyond what we can see. Yes, that's beautiful. And that's a mystery. I mean, I think astrology, space, the stars, the planets, the patterns, how the moon affects us, how the moon affects animals, animals sensing a tsunami before it begins to even stir. I mean, those are the kinds of things that are just living in awe. living in awe of it all is a good place to live, because the alternative, it will take us down, right? Yeah.
Ginger, I
Yeah.
stepped out at the very beginning, so I don't,
Yeah.
I needed to talk to Isaac.
Yes.
Did you talk at all about the brain? Because you've shared with us
Yes,
a lot
here
about
we go.
binary, how
Yep.
our brain wants.
Yes.
What's the next slide? Wants an answer.
Perfect. Perfect, Brooke. That was a mystery, honestly. That was not staged. But yes, exactly, because this is how I try to get my heart and soul and mind around these kinds of things, is that your brain, your human brain, was created to keep you safe and alive. Specifically the limbic system and the amygdala, which is the fear center, the fight or flight center of your brain. Fight or flight is all about you surviving, right? So run away from the bear, or fight, with your partner to save your marriage. Whatever it is, it's about you surviving, and your brain's 100% job is to keep you alive. It will always want answers, because then it can avoid it in the future, right? So this painful thing that happened, our brain is never going to say, that's a mystery. Never. Our brain is going to say, I want to know exactly how that happened so I can help you avoid it in the future. So part of being human means we are always working against hardwiring that needs answers to keep you safe. And this helped me in my journey of okay, this is just my brain's need to understand cause and effect. Then what we know as humans is we have to nuance it. So I use this example, and you may have heard me say this before, that my brain would love for me to never eat a red berry, because some red berries in the forest will kill me, right? So Ginger, no red berries. Red is dangerous. Just file that away. But I have to nuance my brain to say, but raspberries are lovely, and strawberries are lovely, and they're red, and I'm not going to die. But if it was up to my brain, it would always live small and safe and no risks. So you have to know that's how you're hardwired. We can live small and safe the rest of our lives, and we can look for answers the rest of our lives, but we're going to miss out on a lot of life. And we're going to die feeling like we missed something. And so part of our work in the human journey is to stretch beyond your limbic system, your amygdala, and say, I'm going to surrender this. We're not going to figure this out. We're never going to have a cause and effect here. We're never going to have an answer. This is a puzzle that will never be solved. So I choose to surrender it. I choose to release it. You have to do that work with you. Your brain will kick and scream against it, but you have to do it. So when you're wrestling with why, and you're awake at 3 a.m., do some brain management. Do some brain management that says, we are not going to figure this out. Talk to yourself like that. Talk to your brain like that. It is a puzzle that we'll never solve, so let's just surrender to God. We don't need to know. Right? And do that work at 3 a.m. That's practice. We have to practice it. And then if you practice that more and more, your brain will begin to say, we don't have to know. Right? It's still hardwired to keep you safe, but your prefrontal cortex has been trained, your subconscious has been trained to work with your amygdala instead of you having to translate the language so much. Right? It's like when you learn French, at first it's like bonjour, hello, bonjour, hello. Then you walk in and you're like, bonjour, right? It becomes part of you. And that was probably a horrible French accent for anybody that, but the idea is you're training it, and then it becomes a natural language instead of the translation. That's how the brain works, right? So, and safety, the other thing with our brain is safety is an illusion, right? So if I made sense of why the two cars crashed into each other, if I could figure it out with physics, why that happened, my safety, because I understand that, is still an illusion. That does not protect me from the same thing happening again, right? So that's the other thing, we kind of have to call our brain out sometimes on its own BS of like, we're never, just because we could explain one thing, just because I could Google it, there's going to be things in life I can't figure out. So the more you practice mystery, practice living into it, the more that becomes a way of life, and you stop this fighting in your brain to have all the answers. And some of us are more analytical than others. And so some of this is harder for than others. Yeah. Yes, some heads are nodding. If you're an engineering, analytical, beautiful brain, you thrive on solving puzzles and finding answers. So this is going to be harder for you. Yes, yeah. This section is my, so this is going to be extra, you have extra homework there. Yeah. Whereas if you're more of a creative spirit and you're in the flow of things and you're chill about things and you can roll with it, this seems more conceivable to you. So even in this room, we have brains that are going to like fight to hang on to it and resist it. That doesn't mean it's not worth doing the work. That just means it feels really unfamiliar, right? Yes, yes. So this is an important, does anyone want to speak to this as they think about how their brains work? Do you see this, like, can you feel the brain's need to have answers, but your soul, your heart can surrender? You feel that in your body, that tension? Yeah, yeah.
The right brain does not go well with that
Yes,
process.
exactly. The right brain is kicking and screaming.
Yes.
Yes, yes, exactly. Because the right brain has the illusion, I can keep you safe if we figure this out.
Because the right brain goes directly to your heart first.
Yes.
And your emotion.
Okay, interesting, yeah.
It has to weed its way through all of that before it gets to the analytical side.
Yes, that's beautiful, Kim. So true. Yeah. But you are the owner of this human experience you're having, right? You are, somebody in here said you were the boss of me when we were talking. Somebody's grandchild said that. I'm the boss of me, right? That's right. That's sage wisdom. I'm the boss of me. So that means I take us where we want to go, right? I actually do pick the thoughts I spend time with. I actually have agency and choice in that. So why then am I spending the time with thoughts of puzzles I will never solve, and then really going into kind of a downward spiral of sadness because it feels like, why is this happening to me? Everybody else in the world feels happy. Why do I have this grief, or why do I have this horrible thing happen to me? Right? That's the spiral of self-pity that is so easy to go into. But that's also trying to figure out, why did this happen to me? Instead of, there's 70 million people on the planet feeling the exact same way I'm feeling right now. They're struggling with the exact same thing. This is part of being human. This is just part of being human. So another piece that I think comes up in these kind of discussions is, am I being punished for something? Right? Did this bad thing happen to me or somebody I love as a punishment? And we try to figure that out. What did I do to deserve this? You know, theologically, that's not true. But that's our brain trying to figure out how to avoid it in the future. So if I can connect the dots to, oh, I did that thing wrong and then this thing happened, then we can avoid doing that thing again and that thing happening again. So when you get in that kind of a rut of like, is this something that I brought on? Remember, that is just your brain trying to connect dots. That is not a God of love. That is not anything true that I did this and now I'm being punished for it a decade later. Right? And that's old ancient teaching too, that we have like karma for our ancestors and that kind of stuff. All of religion is humans trying to make sense of mystery, right? So, and a belief is just a repeated thought. So all of these things we believe and we're taught It's all of us just trying to get our heads around what it means to be human and how God works. But it's all a mystery. It's all a mystery. And the more you can sit, you can listen to somebody, but you can also say, they're making a best guess, right? Or even in the Old Testament, I read it as so many people struggling to understand how God works. But that was a best guess. I don't know why the tornado hit the trailer park, right? Did they do something wrong? Or is it architecturally not strong enough? Or, right, we could do all these whys. Or we could say, oh, those are bad people and God punished them, right? That's the Tower of Babel. That's Sodom and Gomorrah. That's so many stories. No, that was a human trying to make sense of why the tragedy happened. That's not necessarily how God works. A God of love doesn't send horrible things to his people, her people. There's another mystery. What pronoun do we use for God, right? We grew up with a certain pronoun, but if you had as father, God, if you had a horrible abandoned father experience, then you left God long ago because God was portrayed as a father, and your only data point on fathers is let down, right? So also understand if you're struggling with those kind of mysteries, God doesn't have a gender. It's just humans trying to put God in a box so we understand it. Or the men in control who want a powerful. We're here. That's right. Exactly. So I think a good practice for all of us as people of faith is to not use a pronoun for God, but use God for God. So instead of he, God. Just if you get in a practice of that, it's really beautiful. And like Trinity United Methodist, my friend Tino Herrera is the pastor there. I'm actually preaching there on Sunday if anybody wants to look up Trinity United Methodist. But they changed the Lord's Prayer to our Creator who art in heaven instead of our Father. So it's just those little things that are really beautiful for people that have abusive relationships with certain genders, right? So do that in your own practice because that's a mystery. That's a mystery. So your image of God is a mystery too. We all see God differently. And if we all drew a picture of God, it would be nuanced and different depending on what you were fed or grew up with as images of God. So some of us see an old man on a throne, maybe with a staff and, an authoritarian God. Some of us see just energy, flowing of the loving energy around us. That's God. And everything in between. When I was in seminary, I was sitting by a Korean student this picture fell out of his Bible, and it was a Korean Jesus. And I was like, is that your Jesus? He was like, yeah, what's your Jesus? I'm like, is it not a Korean man? And we ended up having this beautiful conversation because we had an African Jesus in the room. We had a very Middle Eastern Jesus. And then somebody had looked it up on Google. They grew up with a very blonde, blue-eyed, white Jesus, right? And we're just sitting around a little U-shaped classroom. And we had probably 4 or 5 Jesuses that we pictured. Yeah, mystery, right? Mystery. So we're doing that with God too. It's called anthropomorphizing. We put human elements on God because that's all our brain can understand. Mystery. Yeah, Susan.
I was just thinking about how when we're going through something that's hard that we're trying to figure out and we have to accept or whatever, that process, that journey, it always, for me, connects me more deeply to God and oftentimes to others.
Yes.
And it's kind of where the beauty is, kind of where the growth is and the getting to a place of
Yes, Susan.
deeper understanding, deeper connection,
That's
knowing myself more. It's hard,
That's
but
it.
it's that thin place. It's
It is.
where the beauty is.
Oh,
Really.
you got it. So what you're describing is the art of contemplation, right? The practice of contemplation would be just sitting in silence and saying, God, I just want to experience you. And that's it. You're just experiencing.
It's a mystery. I tried to find it. It is a mystery.
It's a mystery.
Ginger,
Yeah.
Ginger and I, sorry Mom, you're in the room and I'm gonna say a cuss word, so I'm prefacing it. But Ginger and I always say, we don't want any friends that haven't been through some shit.
Exactly. Exactly.
People who have been taken to the edge.
Yep.
There is a different level
Yep.
of connection, of
Absolutely.
wrestling, of
You got it. And that's why when your kids or your grandkids or loved ones are going through adversity, as much as we want to save them from pain, they're actually on a spiritual journey. And so when you can hold their pain, and it's so hard to watch somebody you love in pain, but also understand their connection to God will deepen because of this experience. And that is the silver lining to adversity. And we are on a journey in our lifetime of getting closer and closer to God, right? And every adversity takes us a little deeper, a little more into understanding, a little more into challenge, a little more into questioning. And this is the thing with there's a book called The Sin of Certainty by Pete Enns. Yeah, it's very good. Good title, isn't it? Because this is where certainty, what he writes is that certainty holds up for very small periods of time, right? I am certain about this. And then the rug's gonna get ripped out of you, under you, and you're gonna be like, well, that didn't hold up. And then the next one, I'm certain of this. And then the next one. But what I see in that is, so that's our brain wanting certainty. This is just our pattern again. My brain wants to know, and it feels like it knows, so I can cruise for a little bit. Then I'm delivered another lesson. And then I'm less certain. And then I have to explore a whole lot more. And I have to experience God in a new way because I was certain that I had it figured out. And so that is a pattern of life. And Pete does a beautiful job in that book of helping uncover that. Also, Richard Rohr is amazing on the topic of mystery. Anything he has written, he is so good about teaching. And he teaches, I'm circling back to Susan's comment, he teaches the art of contemplation is that you don't have an agenda. So it's not like prayer. Prayer often we feel either we have an agenda or we're looking for answers or, there's a little bit of a what's in it for me kind of in prayer. The way we teach prayer, ask and you shall receive, right? So it's nothing you're doing wrong. It's just kind of how we grew up praying. Contemplation is more, God, I just want to experience you. I just want to sit in your presence. And as Susan so beautifully said, this is where things are revealed to you, right? This is you surrendering the need to have it all figured out. I come into prayer, I pray like this, I have an acronym, I do the Lord's Prayer because I was taught to do it by Jesus. Like, that's all beautiful. But that's different than just going in and allowing yourself to just sit in the mystery of God. And so Richard Rohr teaches that contemplation, and I'm a huge fan of that. The Christian mystics were big contemplative people. So that's a spiritual practice you can do on your own of just show me. And just sit there.
To what Brooke said, I would add to that friendship happens. I think everybody has had, as you said, shit in their lives, and I think where friendship happens is we allow ourselves that vulnerability to share what ours is.
Exactly.
And I don't know if all of you remember the movie, it's an old one, Ordinary People.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
And Mary Tyler Moore's character in that movie was not willing to become vulnerable about that in her life.
Yes.
So
That is so well said, Kim. We bond in the shit, actually, if we would share it more freely.
Yes.
But so many of us are acting like, yes, that, yes.
welcome to church.
Yes, all are welcome here except you, not Village, not Village. A lot of other churches, Village does a great job of allowing for the messy in life, and that's why I love this place. But other places, right, we say all are welcome on our marquee, but there's a few rules to come in the door, right? And we'll try to change you if you don't fit that. This is where religion, Richard Rohr says this, like religion has so messed up, and he's a Franciscan priest. This is, I wish religion just sat in contemplation, right? And just pointed us toward God, but not tell us what God is, right? That would be a really beautiful experience. And yet, because there's agendas and authority and economics, you know, when I studied church history in seminary, I was like, it all comes back to economics. It really does. They built the cathedrals, then they had to repair the cathedrals, and the cathedrals were aging, and that's where we see tithing and purgatory and penance and all these economic-based things. Vatican II did reverse a lot of that in Catholicism, but there's still a lot of economic motives. It's a mystery. These are human behaviors. This is not how God intended, right? So you know that in your souls. Come back to that. Come back to that. Because it's a mystery why things have evolved the way they have. Okay, so I want you to think about, just feel it in your body when I say, you don't have to have all the answers. You don't have to figure it all out. You don't have to know. You don't have to solve the puzzle. How does that feel if you're given permission to not figure it all out?
Freedom.
Oh, such a good word, freedom. What else do you feel?
Relief.
Yes, relief.
Expansive.
Expansive.
Reduced.
Reduced. The burden reduced. What else do you feel? You don't have to know. Open.
Kind of space for more life-giving
Oh,
things.
yes. Let the love come back in. Life-giving things. There's space now.
And more patient.
More patient. Oh, yes. Can feel that. Yeah. You feel the peace that washes over you. If I don't have to figure it all out. Yeah.
Maybe it allows us to accept that others also don't have all
That's
the
right.
answers.
That's right. Nobody does. That's right. Because that's a good point, Susan. We put a lot of pressure on other people to have answers for us. Tell me how this works. Tell me what I should think. Tell me what I should decide to do. It's a great point.
Make space for grace.
Make space for grace. Nobody has it all figured out, and nobody is expected to. How different does that feel? Yeah. 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 What's coming up in your beautiful minds as we feel this freedom, this relief? Is your brain fighting with you a little bit? Yeah.
No, I have. Somebody had said freedom.
Yeah.
I couldn't help but conjure the William Wallace from the movie Braveheart when he screams, "Freedom!"
Exactly. Exactly. That's a good image. Like, we're longing for it. It's guttural. Like, I just want to be free of all this burden from my brain, all this chatter in my head. I want quiet and peace. Exactly.
I think like freedom too for others to not have it figured out even
Yeah.
the same way that you have. Or the
Yes.
way, you know, it's like we don't understand why they haven't figured it out
Right.
with all the information that they have. But it's just that freedom of like,
Yes.
well, they haven't figured it out and that's fine and it is what it is. And
Beautiful. And none of us know what we're doing, really. Right? I mean, none of us really know how to do all this. It's our first day being human on this day. Right?
We really think we do.
Yes, we think we do, but we really don't. And that's where we can allow grace for other people too. We're all trying to
it's
figure.
yourself, like also
Yeah.
to give it to.
That's right. We're all trying to figure it out. We're all new at this. We're all in earth school, human school, right? We are souls that came from God, came into these human beings. We've never done this before. We're trying to figure it out, and we'll go back to God and we'll sit down and say, wow, I figured a lot of stuff out, and I didn't figure a lot of stuff out. But it was a cool ride. And that, if we could live like that with grace for everyone, you're right, Brooke. That's beautiful. It's beautiful. Yeah. The other thing I think is important to normalize is that we are going to have tough seasons of life and good seasons of life. And when you're in a bad season, that doesn't mean I screwed up, life is over, I'll never be happy again. It's just a bad season. And we're going to go up and down throughout our human journey, right? And if we could normalize, oh, I'm just in a tough season right now, instead of what did I do wrong and how do I avoid this in the future and all of the things we do to ourselves. And when we're in a good season, enjoy it even more because we know that bad season will return. But when we take it all for granted, then life starts to feel like I'm missing something, or I can't figure it out, or I'm stuck in this. So the more we just normalize, this is a tough chapter, but there will be bright days again. And I'm going to enjoy the bright days because there will be another tough chapter.
It's also sometimes hard to fully live into the good chapters when we're sort of like waiting for the
Yes.
shoe to drop.
Yes.
So that's not healthy either. But
Exactly.
It's hard to resist sometimes.
That's right. That's right.
Inevitably, the tough season will arrive.
Yeah.
So.
Yes, and that is important, Kim. That is an important thing, to not steal joy from yourself waiting for the shoe to drop, right? That's part of being present and enjoying this moment, not stealing this moment because I'm worried about what will happen. Yeah.
Well, and there's usually joy to be found,
Yeah.
even in the midst of the worst of it.
Exactly, Susan.
So, easier to say than do oftentimes, but if we sort of practice finding joy,
Yep.
even when
Yeah.
stuff's hard, but usually it's not 100% good or 100% bad. Usually we have
That's right.
the death of a parent and the birth of a grandchild,
Yeah.
sometimes in the same week.
Exactly.
And it's like, we
Beautiful.
hold both.
Yeah, totally.
Usually are holding both.
Yes, and I love that you said that because it's and always, right? I can be sad and laugh. And giving yourself permission and not feeling guilty for that, or like I'm doing something wrong. I can have joy in the deepest pit of despair. Yeah.
Is there a book about joy on our worst days?
Yeah, there you go. Beautiful.
Another writer who does this so well is Kate Bowler.
Mm-hmm.
So her newest book is called something like
Yeah.
A Beautiful, Terrible Day.
Yes.
Something like that, where she got diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer with a young child, early 30s.
Yep.
And is living with it, with, treatment and whatnot, but she does and she's a theologian that
Yeah.
just brings so much of that into her work.
Yes. If you're in a tough season right now, Kate is a great one to listen to. Kate Bowler, Bowler. Yeah. Yeah. So to kind of bring us back, mystery, or to finish, see if you can see mystery as a sacred thing and embrace it as a spiritual practice. And so, because mystery really is, God is so mysterious. Jesus' teachings were so mysterious. Those parables we're still trying to figure out in every sermon we hear, right? There's so much mystery in his teaching. And maybe that was the point. Maybe that was the point of so many things in Scripture, is to embrace the mystery. And yet we sit in Bible studies and we highlight and we use commentaries and we cross-reference and we go back to the original language. We work so hard at it. We work so hard at it. But what if we could just take a deep breath and say, I don't have to know, right? I can feel it. I can feel the love. That's all I need. And we could do that with other people. I don't have to know why you do the things you do or why you think the things you think. I can see your loving heart. And I know that to be true. And surrender the need to know, the need to figure it out, the need to solve all the puzzles. Just see if you can practice this as a spiritual experience with God. And just in your prayer, in your meditation, in your contemplation, all synonyms of just, God, I don't know. I don't know. And I'm going to work on not needing to know. Right? Yeah.
That's really good for me for today because I'm teaching my Bible study this afternoon.
Did you prepare a lot?
On the way, I told Barbara, I said, that teacher's guide, I don't care about it.
Perfect.
I don't care what the Greek is and what the this is and the that is.
Perfect, Judy.
So I'm gonna tell that group, just forget it.
It's a mystery. It's a mystery. I love it. That'll be the best class ever. And we'll drink coffee. And we'll enjoy each other.
Besides, I burnt
Perfect.
the coffee cake. So,
It'll be a beautiful day, Judy. That's awesome. That's perfect. And that's why mystery is sacred, right? It's not giving up. It's holy ground. So we kind of have to change our brains on that too. Like, it's not giving up because I can't understand. It's saying, I'm releasing the need to understand, and that is holy, sacred ground. That's where God is. That's the deep work.
so when those Baptists
Yes,
start
yes,
to talk, I'm just gonna say, hey,
yep,
it's
yep,
mystery.
yep. It is.
You have the answer.
You do have the ultimate answer. And this is a thing in religion. It feels safe to give somebody black and white answers. That's why that's all grown to be so right and wrong. But if we can go back to, we talked in here about everything being neutral, right? We label it good or bad. But the neutral is the mystery too. That's a hard one to get our brains to let go of too. Well, then that is very bad. It actually is because we label it bad, right? So if we can stop with all the rules and the labeling and the, yep.
Something that has helped me, I have a very analytical
Yes.
brain, and I'm constantly looking for patterns and why. And so I tell myself, like, you're trying to apply logic to something that's illogical.
Perfect.
And that alone has no logic. Like, why, you can't apply logic to something illogical. right?
Perfect.
So that, like, sort of helps me release the attempt, to do that.
Perfect. Oh, I love that.
And that from a college professor.
Yes, that's a college professor.
Well done, girl.
Exactly, exactly. I have a client that's taking the LSAT right now, and she's having test anxiety. So I was like, give me an example of what's on the LSAT, because I will never know. And she's like, okay, so here's a question, and this goes with what Stephanie's saying. So the logical opposite of hot is
Cold.
She got it wrong. It's not hot. Right? And so I keep thinking about that because, like, the logical opposite doesn't make logical sense to us, right? But so then she was having so much anxiety. I'm like, well, on those kind of questions, just put not in front of it and let's see if we get them right. It's a mystery. I know. I mean, but that's like the kind, but then here's the girl's dream because she can't answer the logical test, right? So yes, Stephanie, that's so perfect. What was your, it's not, wait.
You can't apply logic
Yeah.
to something that is illogical or has no logic.
You can't, yes. You can't apply logic to something that is logical, illogical, or not logical. Yes, that's a beautiful thing to remind your brain, because you can feel your brain in there working at it, right? No, we're gonna
It makes me think
surrender.
of like control, and you're releasing
Yes.
that you control things or know things. Like even thinking like I'm in, things are good now because I have done X, Y, or Z, or we're in a
Perfect.
bad period. How do we get out of this? Even thinking back to like kids, it's like, why did they not sleep well last night? Well, like, what did we do during the day? And you're trying to,
Yes.
rather than it's not anything we've done
Exactly.
or can do. It's just a mystery.
And Brooke just nailed the point, is releasing control, right? Because control is safety. So our brain likes control.
Well, we like to find fault
And we like to find fault.
and say it's their fault.
Yes, 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 exactly, exactly. Because then we feel like we're in control. Yeah, beautiful work today, guys. We went deep into mystery. Any thoughts?
How about your expansive spirituality?
Yes. Tomorrow morning, there's some spots left. Tomorrow morning, if you go to compassionfix.com, you can read an excerpt about it. But it's at 10 a.m. in the Compassion Fix office, which is the state line and 121st Street. I'm doing a class on expansive spirituality. So we're going to talk about just kind of spirituality beyond church. So, what do all, like Jesus, the Hindu god Vishnu, Mohammed, Moses, Buddha, what do they all have in common in their teachings? And then we're going to talk about different lenses on what happens when we die. And we're going to talk about different lenses on angels and resources that are available to us that we don't. Yeah, so that's all tomorrow morning at 10. And I will probably run it again because I've heard from people they can't make it. So we might do another one. But if you can come tomorrow morning, Michelle.
Is there any piece of scripture that comes to mind when you think about mystery?
Yeah, there's a lot.
Is there one that I know over time that.
Yeah, one that really comes to mind on this is you have eyes, but you cannot see. You have ears, but you cannot hear. And it's not that gets preached sometimes like you're an idiot and you're not getting the point. That's not how I read it. I read it as embrace the mystery, right? You have human eyes and you think you have it all figured out. But I want you to embrace the mystery of it all. So there's that one. There's so many. I think the mystery, the other, like, you are not of this world. That scripture gets interpreted lots of different ways. I see it as, see that you are a soul having a human experience and that you will return to me and in the meantime experience this world, but it's not who you are. And what they say you are is not who you are. So those, I like to just stick with the teachings of Jesus on scripture because everything else is a human's experience with God, and they're good stories, but what Jesus said, like if you have a Bible that has the red letters, the Sermon on the Mount, oh my gosh, that's a total mystery. So blessed are all these things that we can't believe are blessed, right? Blessed are the poor, blessed are the meek, blessed are the disabled, blessed are the struggling, so society says the opposite, right? That's a mystery. The Sermon on the Mount's a good mystery, just to allow it to be a mystery. And that's more of a language of they have it figured out. If you look at the word blessed in the original language, it's like the poor have it figured out. The suffering have it figured out, which is the shit. If you sat in the shit, you have it figured out. So that's what Jesus is actually saying in the Sermon on the Mount. And that's also what Buddha taught, because Buddha grew up as a wealthy boy. Then he went outside the city gates and he saw all these homeless people who had this beautiful faith. And he was like, I want what they're having. So he starved himself to suffer because he had never suffered. He golden gates. So he was like, I want to suffer because that's where you find God. And so that's the whole basis of Buddhism, is that suffering is inevitable, so welcome it because it's actually where you'll have a spiritual experience. So that's what the Sermon on the Mount, I think, is really about. But it's the mystery of things don't appear as we see them, right? Or things, you know what I'm trying to say.
But then and is it Ann Bomer? Is that her?
Kate? Yeah.
But I was talking to Brooke about, she in her one makes a big difference between blessed
Yes.
and blessing.
Totally. Yeah.
I'd love to,
Yeah.
I'd love to discuss that
Yeah.
sometime.
Yeah, we can. I'll note that.
Yeah, she talks about the hashtag blessed.
Yes.
And created that to me.
Oh my gosh, like I'm sitting at Capitol Grill and I put my, this really happened. Somebody I follow was at Capitol Grill, took a picture of her lobster steak combo and said hashtag blessed. And I was like, really? Really? So yes, that's the hijacking of that word.
I once did a Bible study lesson that I had to curate myself for on St. Patrick's Day, lucky versus blessed.
Yes.
And what my research told me about blessed is that you are not blessed until you take your luck and bestow it on someone else. That's when it becomes a blessing.
Oh, I love that.
Well, and of course, one is an adjective.
Yes.
And one is a noun.
That's right. Exactly. So if you want to play with this in your own world, maybe when blessed comes into your mind, switch it to grateful.
Yes.
Just grateful. Because blessed makes we have defined it as God has privileged me with something.
Right, and so part of my research said, well, look at the people who are out there suffering.
Exactly.
So you have to, if you have to turn that around, it says that somehow they've done something wrong and therefore they are not blessed.
That's what bugs me about it.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. It has this underlying connotation that you're luckier than I am, right? Or you're chosen, God's provided all this for you. I mean, there's popular pastors on TV that say things like that.
Isn't there a word for that?
The prosperity gospel.
Prosperity gospel,
Yes,
yes.
which is what Kate grew up in and did her thesis on, actually defending it, and then got cancer and was like, that doesn't hold up. Yeah. She did a complete 180. So that's why you can relate to her so much now. But yes, that is a theology that is how God works. And to me, that is a dangerous theology because it's going to crumble at some point. And then it's not going to make sense. So now is God unhappy with me? I mean, that would be the algebra of that, right? If God was happy with me and everything went well, then if everything's going bad, God must be unhappy with me.
And it does not create the compulsion to share with others.
No. That's because then I'm embarrassed that I'm not blessed anymore. Yes, exactly. You just did it. We just did the talk.
Love it.
Okay, we'll have more discussion. But yes, that is awesome. You guys are so awesome. Thank you. So good.